Hi everyone, so today we are going to be looking at graphing quadratics. This is my first video on graphing quadratics. So when we're trying to graph quadratics, we know that the graph is going to end up looking something like this or something like this, okay? It's going to be a U shape or, a horseshoe shape or an N, but it's going to look like this, okay? Because these are our quadratics. And you can always tell because the exponent that's going to be found is going to be a 2. So that's our quadratic graph. And in comparison, if we remember from past lessons, a linear graph was a straight line like this. So this would be linear. Exponential looked something like this or like this. Okay. It's not exactly a U, it's like a curve. So, and this is exponential. And you can definitely tell that this straight line and this curve looks very different from these two. And we know that when looking at a quadratic, we know we have a point or a vertex right in the middle, okay? So, this is going to end up coming down and then it comes back up, or this one comes up and it comes down, but there is like a middle point and that's our vertex, okay? And I'll write it down here too. That's that point. And we have an axis of symmetry, and that's a dotted line right in the middle. Because with quadratics, we know that you can fold it in half and it's exactly the same on both sides. You can fold them in half like this, and it's the same. So that's an axis of symmetry, and their vertex is that very middle point. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into graphing quadratics. Okay, so I have graph paper here, and the first thing that I like to do is when I get into graphing, I like to just go ahead and set up my X and Y axis so I know I will be coming back to it. So let's go ahead. I'm going to kind of set it up on the left side of my paper here, and I'll go ahead and draw my X and Y axis like this. So I know this is X and this is Y, okay? So I know this is where I'm going to be doing a lot of my work on this side when we get to graphing. So we are working with this problem here. We have f of x equals x squared plus 2x plus 1. So step 1, we need to go ahead and identify our A, B, and C. So we have our A, B, C. Our A, we don't have a number here, so that's our imaginary 1. So A is 1, B is 2, and C is 1. Okay, so we have our A, B, and C. Step 2. I want to determine the concavity of the quadratic, okay, concavity. So when I say concavity, is it going to look like this, concave up, or is it going to be like this, concave down? So how do we determine that? When we look at concavity, we have to look at our A. So our A is a positive 1. It's positive. It's not negative. Not negative. So if it is positive, so if A is positive, it's going to be concave up. If A is negative, it is concave down. Okay. We know that A is positive, A is positive, A is positive. We know that it is concave up. So we know that our graph is going to be drawn like this. Okay? Now, step number 3. I want to go ahead and find our axis of symmetry. Okay? Our axis of symmetry is literally this little dotted line that I drew right here and right here, just so we know that that is pretty much, if you were to fold this graph in half, that's the dotted line that we would fold it in half on, right here, right in the middle. That's the dotted line that we would fold it on. So to find our axis of symmetry, we need to find what x is. And so the formula that goes with that is x equals -1 times b over 2 times a. Okay? Now, let's go ahead and fill this in. So -1 times b over 2 times a. Let's go back up here and look. So -1 times b. B is 2. So b is 2. 2 times a. A is 1. Now let's go ahead and work that out. So -1 times 2 is -2, and 2 times 1 is a +2, and -2 divided by 2 is -1. So we know for our axis of symmetry, x is going to equal -1, okay? And let me just go ahead and box this for step 3. So our axis of symmetry is -1. Let's go ahead and put our dotted line in. So we know if this is 0, 0, starting at our origin, we're going to go to -1, and we're going to go ahead and put in our dotted line. Right there. So we know this graph is going to fold right on this dotted line. This is our axis of symmetry. And I'll go ahead and just label that here. Axis of symmetry. I'm trying to keep this color coordinated so you know that this blue is going to be with this one, okay? Now, we need to find our vertex, okay? So, finding our vertex is going to be step 4. Vertex is this point right in the middle of the graph, all right? Let's go ahead and find our vertex. So, step 4, vertex. So, when we're finding our vertex, we need to take the original equation, okay? And I'm just going to go ahead and write our original equation. And so this is f of x equals, right here, x squared plus 2x plus 1. So I'm pulling it here, from here. That's our same thing. See, same thing, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to plug this x, like the axis of symmetry that we had found, right into our x's. So if we know we have -1, we're going to put it into here, and we're going to be putting it into here, okay? F of x is also like finding our y. F of x is our y value. So f of x is going to equal, and I'm just putting in parentheses, so we know that our -1 is going right here, -1 here and -1 here, okay? So -1 squared, I'm gonna go -1 squared, so -1 times -1 is 1, 2 times -1 is -2, and then plus 1, so f of x, or our y, is going to equal, so 1 minus 2 is -1, plus 1 is going to be 0. Okay? And we can even put that into our calculator. I'm going to show you on my calculator. Ignore these scratches on the screen, okay? So, if we put our parentheses, -1 squared plus 2 times -1 plus 1, it would give us 0. So we know that's our y, okay? So we have found our axis of symmetry, okay? Our vertex. We're using our axis of symmetry. So our axis of symmetry is x, so we have -1, comma, and our y is 0. So -1, 0, okay? That's where we got this from. And this is our vertex. So let's go ahead and graph -1, 0. So -1, 0. And we know that this is our vertex. And I'll go ahead and write vertex. Okay? So now we are going to have to build the rest of our graph, okay? Because now we need to know. We know it's going to look like this, but how do we know? We've got to go ahead and create a table. Okay, so this is bringing us to step 5. So step 5, we are going to create a table. Okay, so we know we have our X and we have our Y. Okay, and let's go ahead and draw where we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blanks. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So right in the middle, on this third blank, we are going to write our vertex. Okay, we're going to write our vertex. So our vertex was -1, 0. Okay, now up here we're going to write the numbers that are smaller, and down here we're going to go ahead and put numbers that are bigger in our X slot, in our little blanks here, okay? So if we have -1, what's smaller than -1 is going to be -2 and then -3, and then what's bigger, so it goes -1, 0, 1. Okay, all we're going to do now is we're plugging these X's in the same exact way we did our vertex over here. So we're going to take our, our equation here or up here, and we're just going to plug it in. So if we know that our equation, and I'm just going to rewrite it up here, was f of x equals x squared plus 2x plus 1, we know we're going to write it right here. So we know that a -3 is going to be our new X value. And let's go ahead and put that into our calculator. So we have -3 squared plus 2 times -3 plus 1. And we get, right here, we get a 4. So in this blank, we're going to write 4. We're going to do the same thing right here. So we know -2 is going to go into our parentheses. And let's put that into our calculator. -2 squared plus 2 times -2 plus 1 is going to give us 1. Okay, so right here, I'm going to write 1. Okay, and then for this one, because we already did our vertex right here, we're doing the same thing. 0 squared plus 2 times 0, because remember this is our new x, plus 1. And if we put that into our calculator, 0 squared plus 2 times 0 plus 1 is 1. Okay, and then we're going to do it again here. So we have 1 squared plus 2 times 1 plus 1. Remember, because all of these numbers are just replacing our x. So we're going to say 1 squared plus 2 times 1 plus 1. And we have 4. Right there. Okay? Now, these are going to be our new points. We've already graphed our vertex here. -1, 0, right? So we're going to end up graphing these. But one thing I do want you to look at real quick is we can see 0's in the middle. Then we have 1 and a positive 1 right here and right here. Then we have a 4 and a 4. And if you were to keep doing it, like the numbers as they keep going out would be the same, which means you're doing it right, okay? So let's go ahead and graph. So -3, positive 4. So we're going to graph it. -3, 1, 2, 3. Positive 4, up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Awesome. Let's graph this one. -2, 1. Starting at an origin. -2. -1, -2. Up 1. Right there. Okay. Let's look at 0, 1. 0, we don't move anywhere on our x, and then up 1. Right? Now 1, 4. We're going to start at origin, go over 1, up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Awesome. Now we're going to connect our dots. And look at that. And we have graphed our quadratic. And you can see that there, if you were to fold this, all those points would just match. Like if you were to fold on the dotted line or your axis of symmetry, it would be perfect.